Okay, hear me? Can you hear me?
Probably think that cybersecurity and data protection is majorly for the big companies who think that it's not applicable to them. Over the years, it has been established by statistics researchers that more than 60% of cyber attacks have been against SMEs. So you cannot say that because you are small and medium enterprises, it's not really against you. So you want to keep quiet and you don't want to do anything about cybersecurity or to do about anything to do about data protection. One of the reasons why hackers and cyber criminals go against SMEs is because they are easily accessible, and most SMEs don't really don't have a sophisticated cyber security infrastructure. So it's most of the time the easiest to go against when you need to attack something. And many times it is easy for hackers to just go against small companies and get small money from as many as possible than to go against only one company. So what I'm trying to lay the background that you actually need to understand what to put in place when it comes to cybersecurity, no matter how small your company is. So let me move forward. So important is to get your infrastructures in place. Infrastructures consist of the equipment that you put in place, or the files, devices that you use. How are they going to comply with cybersecurity, and how are they going to ensure that you get your business secured in the cyberspace? So you actually should know that you should update your devices and get correct software. Don't use software that are market. Don't download that virus or cheap market. Because most times when people download that virus from black market, they probably will be downloading the virus. So it is important that you go for the real product and make sure you have a good internet firewall, and ensure that you have periodic assessment of all the devices that are connected to the internet. As much as it may seem as if it's not that important, small companies too need to do a periodic assessment of all their devices. That's sort not to proper password. So next slide, please.
Can you see that?
Okay, thank you very much. So now, on policy, now I will talk about data protection and cybersecurity laws generally and policy. So many times it is important for companies that handles people's data to ensure that they protect people's data. And that is the confusion where people talk about what's the difference between data protection and cybersecurity. Of course, data protection is majorly like the regulation based that talks about you protecting the data, personal data that you deal with. And most data protection deal with the data of people in your hand. And how you will deal with the data, the infrastructure you will need to have, the policies that you will need to have, every other thing that you need to deal with protecting that data is the idea of cybersecurity. The structure you put in place to protect the data you have in your hand is the idea of cybersecurity. So they always work hand in hand. And the Nigerian data protection regulation, as well as other data protection regulation in the world, makes it compulsory for you to ensure that you secure the data that you have in your hand. So if you are collecting data, people's data, and you are keeping it, whether you are right. See, many people opine that data protection protects data that you put online. No, this is not true. Even if you collect data, and if I go to an hospital now and they collect my data by collecting my blood sample and all those things, and they put it down and they write it down somewhere, so far as it is my data that have to do with my personality, that has to do with me, it is compulsory for that small hospital to ensure that my data is kept safe. Whether they are also embarrassed, they should find a way to. So data protection is saying that no matter where you collect my data from, whether online or physically, you should ensure that you keep that data secured. So you should know what that, and it is also important for companies to know that there are sector-specific laws when it comes to cybersecurity. There are in banks and financial institutions. There's the cybersecurity framework for banks. There are other policies that exist apart from the data protection regulation that compel companies and small and medium enterprises and startups to ensure that they keep the data of the people that they deal with safe. And more also, why you should work on your cybersecurity is also because of your company information. Of course, data protection regulation mentions personal information, personal data a lot. It is also important that you have some trade secrets and some company confidential information that you don't want people on the outside to know. So you must have some policy that will ensure that your information are not breached. And some of the there are a lot of policies that you may need to have on the internal level. On the external level, you may need to have a privacy notice on your site where if you have a site, if you are collecting people's data on a website, you need to tell people how you deal with their data. What data do you collect by people visiting your site? And if you use cookies on your website, you should have a cookie policy that tell people that I use also cookies, and this is what we use. This is who we how we process your data. This is a principle that guides us in processing your data. This is the right that you have if in the privacy notice. And some people used to pack privacy notice and cookie policy into the same document. But the idea is that you pass the idea to people, you pass the information to people of how you use their data. And it is also important that that at the end of that form, or before people sign that form, it is important that you put maybe a small statement, not that long, that people can read to see how that data that you are collecting on form. I know people don't really do that, but people pass form to you and they just give form to you and you fill form, and there's nothing like privacy notice. I think some banks are already putting it at their bank opening form now. So it is important that it's not about online alone. Why that document is offline? Where is my data going to? What is going to happen? Who will see my data? The party that will deal with my data. All these things must be placed on the document. And these things will only happen when there are policies internally that guide the collection of data, how you protect data, and so many policies that you may need to have on the inside. You can also have a privacy policy on the inside that talks information with confidential information, who and who should have this information, who and who should have this information. And you can also have data breach policy, such that data breach policy is talking about what if our data is breached tomorrow? What are we going to do? What are the communication levels? How are we going to talk to the people? How are we going to talk to government organizations? How are we going to talk to regulatory bodies? What are we going to do? What are we going to say? You must have this policy in place to let your staff and your employees know how to react when there is data breach. And you must also have stuff like privacy, password protection policy, your software update policy, clean desk policy. Clean desk policy is saying that people, after they pack their information, after they are done at the end of the day, they don't leave important information on the table, such that if anybody come in the office at the end of the close hour, he will not be able to take something that he will use to hack the system of the company. So small things like that, and technology equipment disposal policy and so on, email policy, all these things. You can talk to your IT lawyer to tell him the kind of business you do, and he will probably give you an analysis of all the internal policies and the external policies you need to put in place. So it is also important to enhance compliance with this policy. Next slide, please. So it's important to and that will lead me to talking about employees. How do you ensure that employees are well trained to comply with these policies? You need to tell your companies, to your staff, to tell your company workers, not only the IT guys may be aware on how not to put some information out, how to snap picture with ID card. People snap picture with ID cards that have barcode, and it's commonplace. You see people just flounce their ID card in pictures when they are snapping. What are the things that you have instructed your companies? Of course, infrastructure is good. You may have a strong firewall. It's a saying in cybersecurity that as much as there is, firewall is important, human war is also important. So how are you training your employees to ensure that they secure the data that they are collecting? How do you instruct them to ensure that they don't malhandle people's data? How do you tell them to not to expose people's data? Some people will snap their system to show somebody, and there are other people's data on the system showing, and they snap it and put it on social media, stuff like that. So those policies that you have that I mentioned, you need to ensure that you properly educate the employees to get them aware about this. You must already have an ever-ready IT team. If you don't have, you can outsource some work. There are some things you can't do on your own to ensure that you have a secure space on the outside. If you are, especially if you are doing a business that has to do with collecting a lot of data on the inside, you will need some people to work for you, even if they are not working full time. Get people to help you on this. Then it is also important, I must say this, you must remove ex-employees' access to facilities. If you have an online facilities and you have people that have passwords to online facilities, if an employee is going out, find a way to, you know how you onboard them, find a way to, how will I put this now, to remove all their access to facilities, internet facilities. Maybe they have password, change the password and all those things. And also ensure that you get employees to have a non-disclosure agreement. Next slide, please. If you have trade secrets, you need to ensure that you get them to sign non-disclosure agreement. A lot of people have talked about non-disclosure agreement, so I don't want to go over it again. So managerial decisions. It is important that the management itself, whoever is managing the company, no matter how small, they understand how data should be processed and how data should be used. So if the management is aware, you will know when to spend money on data and how to budget cybersecurity inside the body, such that when the IT guy is telling you that you have to buy an antivirus software, you won't be saying you should just go and download from a friend who has it. So you know that you have to budget the cybersecurity into your stuff. Then it is also the major work of the management to ensure that there is compliance with all the policies that we mentioned in the first place. So it's not only the work of the HR alone, it's also the work of the management to ensure, because in the end, if there is any data breach, they won't come and call the HR. They won't come and call the junior staff that is always doing anyhow with people's data. They will management, they will come for the whole company. So it is important that the management ensure that there is compliance with all the security policies that they have in place, and also ensure that threat and breach are handled technically and properly. It is also important that if there is any breach and it is made known, communication of breach is important. Communication to the regulatory body is also very, very important. No matter how small your company is, if there is any data breach, it must be properly handled and properly. See, Nigeria itself, I think there's a company now, Solo loan or some Soko loan or something. Maybe somebody have not informed them before. I've talked about how they handle people's data abnormally, but maybe their management will have handled it better before now. But they were fined and they had to pay the money. Next slide, please. So it is important for the management to stand up guard and ensure that companies comply with all the information that they deal with. This is my last slide. And my last slide is on cyber insurance. Of course, cyber insurance is a novel thing everywhere. And we may be saying that some companies, if you are a small company, but you are packing people's data, you are dealing with a lot of information, I may advise you that you have the cyber insurance. Of course, it may not be taxed cyber insurance, but as part of your insurance, you can slot in, I don't know, maybe the insurance guy can explain this properly. You can slot in cyber risk. If it's a risk, it is insurable. So you can slot in cyber risk in what you are insuring for, because no one can tell. We are dealing with 100,000 data and something happened, there's a data breach. You know that anything you are going to, it will cost you a lot. So a lot of things need to be put in place. Ensure that you have lawyers that put you in line with compliance with Nigerian data protection regulation, how you deal with your data and everything. All these things are very important. And I'll round up by saying that no matter how small a business is, so far as it is online, it is exposed to risk. So ensure that you put in place all the strategies for you to stay safe while online. Thank you very much. My name is Adeyemi Owoade. Thank you.
Thank you very much.